Hi, everyone. I hope you have learned a lot from the sessions before me. Before I start my part, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tasalnika Brenda, but my students know me as Miss Brenda. I acquired my Sarjana Pendidikan and Bachelor of Education back in 2015, and professionally, I've taught for almost 7 years, mostly focusing in early childhood education. All of my teaching career, I have always taught in an English-speaking school with the majority of Indonesian students. I understand and agree that in our increasingly diverse country and globally connected society, the development of two or more languages is important to be implanted in children's growth. However, from my personal experience, teaching in English to preschoolers and kindergarteners whom English is their second language raise up a concern of will these kids really thrive even more in school and in a community with having two languages, or will it just confuse them? And with that in mind, this talk will be about how to support our dual language learners, or what people mostly known as bilingual kids. I'm going to talk about the definition, the benefits, some strategies, and moreover, the do's and don'ts of raising and supporting your dual language learners, or later shortened as DLLs. So let me share you my PowerPoint presentation and let's get started. Supporting your dual language learners, or DLLs. So let's start with definition. What exactly is a dual language learners? The U.S. Office of Head Start, which is the program of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Service, define dual language learners, or DLLs, as children birth to age 5 who are learning two or more languages at the same time, or are learning a second language while continuing to develop their first language. Of course, being bilingual has many benefits for little children, both in short term as well as for long term. At least there are 4 different aspects which you can see it from. I'm going to start by showing you the first one is for the cognitive. Research shows that bilingual people have an easier time developing strong thinking skills, focusing, remembering, and making decisions, and may delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And this is because individuals who are bilingual switch between 2 different language systems. Their brains are very active and flexible, meaning the more you stimulate your brain, the stronger it will become. Next is under social emotional. Becoming bilingual supports children to maintain strong ties with their entire family, culture, and community, especially if some members of the family or community are speaking in different language. Bilingual children are also able to make new friends and create strong relationship in their second language. And of course, this is an important personal skills in our diverse society right now. Next is for their learning. Bilingual children benefit academically in many ways because they're able to switch between languages. They develop more flexible approaches to thinking through problems. This echoes the benefits of their academic, which says that they'll have an easier time to develop strong thinking skills and do problem solving. Their ability to read and think in 2 different languages promotes higher level of abstract thought, which is critically important in learning. And the last one is about global. Bilingual individuals have the opportunity, of course, to participate in the global community in more ways, get information from more places, and learn more about people from other cultures. So now that we know the benefits of being a bilingual, of course, we'll love to see our kids who are DLLs obtain and experience these benefits to the utmost. But the question now is, what can we do? What are some common strategies that we can use? So let me share you some of the 4 strategies that's very common and very famous. The first one is what they call as OPOL, or one person, one language. OPOL seems to be the most popular method when raising a bilingual child, and it's as simple as it sounds. One person, one language. Each person speaks to the child in the same language consistently and do not speak the other language as to not confuse the child. The child is expected to respond in the language which is spoken to them, and the parent should correct the child if they respond differently. Some advantages of OPAL of this method is each person is speaking to the child is speaking their own mother tongue with a native accent, and therefore it will make the kids pick up the language to a native level quicker. Number two is the child will learn to speak with in which language, and therefore there will be less confusion. But there are also disadvantages of this method, which is the minority language is spoken by a parent who is not the primary caregiver. They may not get as much exposure to it. And it may become a passive language where they understand what is being said but reply in the majority language. So, for example, if mommy is speaking English, but daddy and the whole household are speaking Bahasa or is speaking Indonesian, the kids who got more exposure of Indonesian will tend to speak the language more. When mommy is talking in English, yes, mostly they understand it, what mommy is saying. But however, they may respond back in Bahasa or in Indonesian rather than in English. And that leads to the second method, which is the MLAH or minority language at home. This is more about children who speak one language at home, but out in the community and at school, the children will speak the different language or the second language. Advantage of this method is the whole family can speak together in one language. You don't need to add another language to that. And it can strengthen the minorities language so that the children are getting exposure to it more often. But the disadvantages of this method is younger children who are not at school yet have more exposure to the minority language. And when they're starting school, they can sometimes be a little bit behind other peers in the community language just because they just never get exposed to that language spoken at school or in the community. The next one is context or time and place. The context method requires the use of each language in a different context or situation. It depends on where you are or who you are with. For example, if you have family members or friends who only speak a certain language, you switch the language you're speaking right away so that you're able to all understand each other. Another example could be that you speak one language in everyday situation, but then choose a certain time of the day or week where you can speak a different language. Many families do this to give a certain language more exposure. For example, they will speak all Indonesian from Monday to Friday, but then on weekends, Saturday to Sunday, they will only be speaking English. Family who follow the context method usually speak different languages with each other on daily basis. An advantage of this method is your child will learn quickly where to speak which language and who to speak it with. They will realize and pick it up naturally that different languages are spoken in different situations. But the disadvantages of this method is there isn't really any consistency and there could be a risk of confusion. Children may take preference to one language and therefore the others may lack an exposure. And the last strategies is the mixing language. This is where parents and children will switch from one language to the other, depending on what they are doing or the context of the conversation. From my personal experience, this method has been mostly used by teachers in English-speaking schools. The advantage of mixing language is there is no need for any plan. It all will come naturally. Children are not forced to speak a language when they don't want to. But of course, it comes with disadvantages as well, is children may favor one language over the other. And so they may grow up with a native language, level of one language, while the other is lagging behind. One disclaimer about this method is it is meant to be one language in one sentence. Although you're mixing language, but it is meant to be one language in one sentence. It raises up a concern to me personally when caretakers talking to the children in sentences consisting of two languages. Usually they speak in their mother tongue, replacing some nouns with English words. I also still find myself doing this. Sometimes I'll talk to the kids in Indonesian but change the noun, like yang blue yang mana ya? Kamu lihat yellow fish nggak? So this is not recommended at all because some children would speak actually solely in their mother tongue, not knowing, for instance, the name of all the colors or fruits or animals or numbers, etc., in their mother tongue, but only in English. It can get worse to the point that you can see them not getting the syntax of either language and not constructing grammatical sentences soon when they grow up. So again, the best way to do this method is you have to immediately translate your sentence. For example, you ask, "Do you see the blue fish? Kamu lihat ikan biru nggak?" Or, "Are you happy today? Kamu senang nggak?" So something like that. So the kids will make connection between, oh, happy means senang. Blue fish means ikan biru. They make connections right away behind that, and they can translate it, and they know that it is both it is spoken in two different languages. Okay. And now that we know some strategies, and to close this talk, I will share quickly about some do's and don'ts to support your bilingual kids even more. Number one is do be consistent with the language strategy you follow. But also do not hesitate to change your approach if it isn't working for your family. Yes, consistency is needed. Consistency is key. But after some period of time, if you realize there is no significant improvement you saw in the kids, then you have to be fluid to give it a try, to try a different method or strategies. Number two is do introduce new language to your kids as early as possible. But also do not think it is too late to introduce a new language later on. Studies show that the window of opportunity or the critical period of children to become proficient in a language is between birth and 5 years old. And while much of the research of raising bilingual children states that the ability to learn a new language diminishes gradually as they get older, it still doesn't mean that it is impossible for your children to become fluent later on in life. It is never too late because it is all about how much exposure your child is getting to the language and how much interaction they're having. So even your child is outside of their critical period, as they call it is still possible. But maybe it just may take a little more effort. Three is do take advantage of media and technology to help your kids to get more exposure to the minority language. But also, do not think that TV or media alone will teach your child a language. It has to go side by side. They need to speak and practice the language with you and the caretakers, but also give them some videos or movies for extra exposure. And the last one, which is my favorite one, is please do read to your kids every day. Try to do it in both languages. And do not stop reading to them once they can read themselves. Many studies show that toddlers and preschoolers who are reading every day have a larger vocabulary than those who are not read at all. Reading has many benefits and advantages. Not only does it enhance a child's vocabulary and also help them understand how to read and write, but reading aloud to children also helps them to understand different topics about the world and about their everyday lives. So, yeah, one thing to remember and to realize about raising and supporting your bilingual kids is exposure plus need. You need to expose your child to the target languages as much as possible. This could be from parents, this could be from daycare or from school, from language lessons, or even family and friends. But also make sure that there is the need for your child to use them. If there is no need to use and practice the language, then it will just be difficult for them to reach fluency on that added language. And I'm gonna, okay, hold on. And these are the reference. And I am going to close my talk with saying this one thing. Please keep in mind that there is no one way approach to raising or supporting a bilingual kids. It depends on each individual's family situation and needs, and what works for one family may not necessarily work for another. You first need to ask yourself what will be best for you and your family, and which bilingual parenting method or teaching method will best to help your children. And if your children is at school, communicate any language concern with the teachers so that every parties can work side by side towards the same end goal in supporting our dual language learners. That is all from me. I hope you all have learned something from me today. And if you still have any unanswered questions, feel free to contact me in my email address, thessalonicabrenda@gmail.com. And again, thank you so much for listening and God bless you all.